Hi everyone, hope you're all doing really well. So this is going to be the Ayaka solo no damage run on all the first halves. So before we get into the video, I just want to sort of explain a couple of things. And you'll see here in the background footage my attempt on doing the solo no damage run for the second halves. Currently I'm not done with those yet, and it is just quite time consuming because let's say you're on the second floor, second half, you always then have to like beat Magokenki and then like constantly reset. So it is quite a hassle, but obviously the first halves are quite easier and they go much more smoothly in this case. So typically when I do these sorts of runs, there obviously you have to like take a couple of attempts. It's not that easy, and the biggest challenge in all of these runs is not stamina management, it's not dodging the enemies, but it is actually when to use your elemental burst. Because here's a little thing: if you use your elemental burst at the wrong time, then the few seconds after your elemental burst ends, like right here, you are actually vulnerable to taking damage. So let's say you're in your elemental burst, obviously you are invulnerable, and the enemy hits like projectiles, then obviously you'll get hit, and then as a consequence, you will then forfeit the run. So that is, in my opinion, like the trickiest thing. But generally, the reason I do this at C6R5 is because I think it's like the only viable method or like sort of builds that you need to get like a good time. So that's a big thing, because you don't want to take like forever. Obviously, if you're a free to play player and you want to give yourself like 10 minutes to do this, then you can do it. But it becomes like stretched out. So it's always quite nice to clear these things in a reasonable time frame. That's like my one opinion on it. And yeah, my second sort of opinion is I think with Ayaka, you obviously get the 24 dodges, which is really awesome, and that allows you the flexibility to dodge a couple of things. And as you can see in the background footage, we cleared the first floor, second half quite convincingly. So let us actually get into the proper run. This is now the first floor, first half. We can take whatever buffs, but generally crit rate, attack, or elemental burst is fine. With the new floor, the Pyro infusion is not as bad as the Electro infusion for Ayaka, interestingly enough. As you can see, this is pretty standard. I've played like hundreds of hours, and if you guys have like watched my previous no damage runs videos, we've done this like so many times against these samurai. It's, to me, it's almost like instinctual, like what they're gonna do, when they're gonna attack. But obviously, some ones or like enemies like the Fatui, I don't actually practice against them a lot. I think they were in like 3 or 4 best rotations ago, at a much higher level. But I remember the biggest problem with them is they are very RNG, so this can go like a number of ways. Really, I think what I'm sort of did here was just sort of wait to build my elemental burst. And in general, with Ayaka, the big key is if you've got C1, that is actually such a strong constellation in this context, because by being able to reset your E's cooldown faster, you can actually build more energy, and then you can get your elemental burst up quicker. The Ayaka build I've got has literally just a base on 100 energy recharge, so she's really not that strong in terms of getting elemental burst back up, and that is why C1 really sort of rounds out her. So that's what I so often mean when I talk about Ayaka's constellation rounding her out, because all of these things, when they like work together, they really make this character quite a complete character, which is why I love her so much. She is literally the most perfect character. Against Magokenki, this is going to be quite a fun one. I really encourage people to try and sort of do like no damage runs against him, because he teaches you quite a lot about when to iframe, how to iframe, and then exactly like sort of what your hero's strengths and weaknesses are. For instance, with Magokenki, and you'll see this in just a bit in a short moment, what we're actually going to do right now is like E and then sort of can dash cancel out. But what happened was, while he was attacking, I timed it just right such that we can attack and obviously defend at the same time. This attack's quite easy to iframe, so the moment his swords hit the ground, not before, but the moment they hit the ground, you want to press the sprint button, and then you can very easily sort of avoid damage, which is quite awesome. And here we've got Ayaka's Q ability. You can see a mine is not as strong as a typical Ayaka of C6 or 5, and that's because I sort of built my Ayaka to have more physical damage than cryo damage bonus, and that's sort of just a preference for me doing like solo type of runs. And this should be almost like game over with the Magokenki. And as we're heading on to the final floor, you'll see all sorts of things, but do note that I do like double and triple dash quite a lot, and that's because I'm just like sort of scared as to how the enemy will play. So from here on, I'll keep quiet, enjoy the show. Cheers.
Ready.